Absolutely, especially those criminal
Ready?
cases.
Yeah.
Because criminal
All
cases
right, good evening.
are always,
Thank you all for putting up with our 5 minutes of tardiness, but we did have a meeting previous to this with the presentation, our annual presentation with the hospital, and as always, Mr. Sharon loves to run us right up to the 11th hour. So at that point, thus the reason why we're 5 minutes late, our apologies. But we do want to say good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of Worcester City Council held this Monday, February 5th, 2024. Tonight's meeting is in council chambers and live streamed on YouTube. As I stated, it is after 7:30, and our next regularly scheduled council meeting will be on Tuesday, January 20th, 2024, due to President's Day on the 19th. February. Oops, my apologies. All right. We do have two members of council that are absent this evening. We knew about that in advance. And Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll for those that are here?
Mr. Abernathy.
Here.
Mr. Gaffey.
Here.
Mr. Huzay.
Here.
Ms. Knappich.
here,
Mr. Malta. Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Warden.
All right, well, we have a quorum, even with our two that are absent, and the agenda will remain as presented. At this time, I'll ask you to stand and join members of the City Council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Abernathy, second by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll, oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Communications from Mr. Mayor and the administration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, last time when I did this, I stood, and I was scolded afterward, because apparently when you stand, you have a choice. You can either be heard or you can stand up. You can't do both. So no disrespect to council whatsoever, but I'm going to remain seated this time. First of all, we did just come from the Worcester Community Hospital. Mr. Sharon did a great job. Apparently, if you don't press the button, you don't get hurt either.
We'll get you trained, Mr. Reynolds.
So I think that's my third one. So a lot of it's a little bit of repetition, but again, I think probably was a little eye-opening maybe for the new council members a little bit if you're not familiar with that. And again, the more part of the new job responsibility is being chair of the Board of Governors there, and really impressed more and more every time about the impact that the Worcester Community Hospital has in our community, and how fortunate we are as a community to have a community-based hospital, both in terms of, it's locally governed, so our community says, what goes on there, we have a say in that, and also because it's community-driven. It doesn't have a bigger system in mind, like, okay, what's best for the big system? It's what's best for our community. So, again, very, very fortunate to have that, and I think as more and more hospitals, the community hospitals are kind of dying off, you're seeing what other communities are dealing with as a result of that. And, we've avoided that, and hopefully it's going to stay that way for a long, long time. End of last week, Joel sent out a newsletter or an update, I think, to council. I'm hoping, we're trying to do that on a regular basis. I hope you're finding that informative. I like it because, I get a lot of questions. My wife is the main culprit, and rather than try to answer all her questions, I hand her the newsletter and said, or I forward the email, and it kind of knocks down, 3/4 of the questions that she has, and I assume that other people are doing the same. If not, I think you should, because it's got, to my way of thinking, a lot of information that people in the community are curious about. I won't beat this to death, but just a few highlights that were in there for the people that might be listening or watching later. We did have a comprehensive plan presentation to the Planning Commission last Thursday. Joel and I were there. Was approved unanimously by Planning Commission, and that'll be coming to us February 20th for adoption. There'll be a presentation before council on that, and I should take that back. I don't know that we have to formally adopt that or not. I think that's up in the air, but we'll be having a presentation on comprehensive plan update. Parks and Rec Committee met on January 22nd. I was there. They talked about a number of things, but probably the big item, at least as far as community perception, is the patio improvement project there at Freelander Chalet. It'll be on the south side of the chalet, and I think work on that started today. So if you looked at the drawings on that, I think it's going to be a very nice addition, particularly for those people that are renting the chalet for different events. So that's going to be, again, a nice addition there, and hopefully that'll be up and ready for the start of pool season, which is, it's not around the corner, but it's not that far away. We also had several meetings with some existing businesses in our community and also some prospective developers and businesses. Joel summarized those that he could in that, so I'd refer you to there for details. There are a couple other that we're not in a position to share now, but some very interesting discussions, and we're looking forward to being able to share with council in the next few months, possibly some other projects going forward. And the last thing that he mentioned in there that I've asked Phil to kind of cover, for Joel's not feeling well today, and he decided to stay home during the day. We thought, there's no reason to come and share whatever he's got with council tonight. So Phil is covering for him. And there was a meeting of the Wayne County Land Bank last week, and I was not able to attend, but Joel did. And the Land Bank, with the encouragement from the administration, is participating in the Welcome Home project, and I've asked Phil to touch on that in a minute.
Correct, yeah. So they approved the application for the land bank due February 9th to apply through Department of Development funds called Welcome Home. Community Action will be facilitating that application and the administration of the program, including the monitoring. There's a 5-year monitoring window before the state takes it over. These funds could be used for purchasing qualifying residential properties, cost of construction or rehab, or tax credit for eligible properties that fit within the guidelines. So it's bringing that money into the county is a great thing for us and obviously the county. So,
Good. Thank you, Phil. We had a meeting with Joel Vince and I with Jen Kuiper, who's the county planning director, to talk about the county's comprehensive plan. They're doing their update as well, and talking about how that fits in with their. There was an open forum for elected officials in the county over at the Overall Public Library hosted by Congressman Max Miller. He's our congressman in Washington, and that was an informative session with a lot of the township trustees and other mayors in the county. Main Street had their annual accreditation meeting last week with Heritage Ohio, and tomorrow, I think you've all had the invitation, is their statewide conference, or workshop, I guess they call it. And I'm sure, it was supposed to have registered by now if you wanted to, but I'm sure if you showed up, you could probably get in. It's being hosted down at the Best Western. That's an all-day event. At the last meeting, I mentioned that we were trying to reinstitute the quarterly meetings with the city government leaders of Orrville, Rittman, and Worcester. And we've actually pulled one off already. We hosted it. We did it right here, and we had probably 15, 20 people in the room. And it was a pretty informative meeting, I think. For one thing, I guess there were a lot of new faces in the room, being new in the election year, so we got a chance to know each other. Obviously, Worcester, Orrville, and Rittman are very distinct communities with different issues and different problems, but you'd be surprised about how much we also have in common. Housing shortage, pending Ohio legislation on a number of issues, public pensions being one, the Issue 2 passage in November and how we implement that. And the one thing that I think you're going to be hearing more from, and possibly Chief Fisher might weigh in this at a later date, is Orrville has a pretty innovative traffic camera system in place that does a lot of things, and I think there was a lot of discussion about that. I'm sure Matt's familiar with that and we'll probably be talking, I have the feeling that we'll be talking about that at a later date, just because of all the features that system has. Trying to think what else we got here. There's a Family and Children First Council meeting this morning that was here. That was very informative. That was new territory for me, so learned a fair amount there. As far as some upcoming events, Wednesday evening, I think we're swearing in 3 new Worcester Police Department officers here. So what time is that, Chief?
5 o'clock, safety center.
Okay, so at the Safety Center.
Yeah, the safety center, correct.
Very good. So, that's open to the public, so if anybody would like to attend that, please feel free to do so. Monday, there's going to be a formal dedication of the Rotary Clock at the new roundabout at Oldman and Oak Hill at, I think it's at 2 o'clock, I believe. I'm looking at the Rotary members there. Check me for details if you want, but I think it's 1:30 or 2 o'clock. I think it's after the meeting. And then most importantly, February 16th is Fiesta Friday. You've all been invited to that, and all have the invitations. Again, this is not just a chance to get together, but there is employee recognition at that. So if you do have the ability to make that event, it's a good time. And again, we try to get, I know in the past, and it'll continue here, they try to get you in and out of there by 1:30 or so at the latest. Last 2 things, on February 20th, in addition to having a presentation on the comprehensive plan, it'll be my first day to the city address. So, I'm sure there'll be limited seating available for that, so if you want somebody there, tell them to get there early. Then on March 4th, Worcester Growth is going to be doing a presentation by council. John Ansel has agreed. John's a very shy individual, and it's hard to get him to talk, but he has agreed to come and do that presentation for us, so.
Will that start about 4 o'clock then in the afternoon?
We should. A quick review on tonight's agenda. We've got compared to last week, when I think we had 15 or 16 items, I think we have 6 tonight. Because we have two members absent, we will not be able to suspend the rules on anything. We just don't have the votes to do that. So the first 2 items will have to remain on first reading. The first is an amendment to an existing CRA agreement with Worcester Brush. This is a tax incentive abatement that was awarded previously, and because they are proposing to take on a tenant in the building, the regulations require that we have that tenant added to the legislation or to the agreement. They'll have more details on this later. Again, this is not a new CRA, but it would allow Worcester Brush to use the Welch packaging headcount to help satisfy their CRA employment requirements. Second item is an ordinance that would allow us the option of hiring an assistant law director as a full-time position. Not that we're necessarily planning on doing that, but in the job search process, it gives us the flexibility. If that's the way we want to go, it would give the administration the ability to bring on a full-time person there. The last 4 items I would describe as the usual and customary. And again, because of the rules, the first 2 items will have to stay on first reading, but the last 4 do not require 3 readings. So with that, I have no more to say, Mr. President. Appreciate your patience with me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the information. Ms. Hamilton, do we have any petitions?
No petition.
No petitions. Okay, well, now we have communications from the public. Again, this will be on items that are agenda items only, and I see we have 2 that have signed up. Mr. Millay, I guess you want to go first?
Thank you, everybody. Jonathan Millay, 538 North Walnut Street. I'm sorry, 538 North, excuse me,
Market Street?
North Market. I need more coffee, I apologize.
Christmas
My
Run.
Personal residential address, 1864 Christmas Run Boulevard. I just wanted to offer a quick introduction for this legislative item coming up here with the Worcester Brush Company. This is with how our rules are set up with the CRA program, and to ensure compliance with state law, we always require, if we have a tenant in the facility that's going to have employment, that they become a party to the agreement so that they are abiding by the same rules and requirements for disclosure and non-discrimination that apply to anybody with CRA tax exemption. So in any event, wanted to just share that we are available to help answer any questions. We've given out a pretty detailed summary in our request for agenda item, and happy to help answer any questions. And also just wanted to give a warm welcome to Mr. Ben Mabah, president of the Worcester Brush Company, who has helped to lead what is the creation of our single largest building constructed in one full go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person that had signed up is Mr. Mabah. And I'm assuming you want to speak about ordinance 2024-04?
That's exactly the ordinance, yes.
Thank you.
Don't make me repeat it, right? Thank you, Mr. President, Council President, and Council. Again, Ben Mabah, Worcester Brush Company, 604 Madison Avenue is the place of business, and I reside at 3970 Stone Creek Drive, Worcester, Ohio. If you have to do that, now I did it. Thanks for taking the time to review the amendment that you guys are looking at in the previously approved CRA, and just have a few comments, and they're very brief, I promise. When we built our Worcester North building at Worcester Innovation Park, our intention from the beginning was to lease the northernmost 200,000 square feet of that building. Tonight's reading of the proposed amendment is the next step in that process, and it's critical to the overall success of the entire project for Worcester Brush. And this is a project we believe that has had a positive impact on the community already and will continue to have a positive impact on the community for years to come. So from our standpoint, we would appreciate your support of the amendment, and myself and Tim Swift would be here to answer any questions if they come up in the time. We'd be happy to answer any questions that we could as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Hamilton, we have no committee reports. We have no public hearings. We have no unfinished business, so we will move on to new business. But before we get to the first item of new business, we've got a few announcements here. One is, while I don't believe that throughout the process of this particular ordinance that council's going to need me to vote on it, but should that come down to it, I'm going to have to recuse myself due to ties with the project or potential project, as it may or may not move forward. And along those same lines, I know we have a couple others as well. Mr. Gaffey?
Yes, I also will have to do the same and recuse myself, being that Worcester Brush is my full-time employer, and so I don't feel I can be part of that vote or consideration.
Very good, understand. Mr. Huzet?
Yes, I'll also be recusing myself from ordinance 2024-04.
All right, thank you very much.
Leave it to the rest of us.
And with that, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read the ordinance for us.
Ordinance number 2024-04, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-16, authorizing the mayor to include Welch Packaging Group, Inc. as a tenant party to the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the City of Worcester and the Worcester Brush Company for immediate enactment.
All right, Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to jump right in and just ask Mr. Millay some questions in regards to this so that we can be kind of crystal clear what this ordinance is. We've had some confusion come up through some questioning, so I appreciate your willingness to take the questions on. So in this ordinance, is this ordinance meant to transfer the tax abatement to Welch, or is Worcester Brush retaining the abatement, but the city is asking for authority on behalf of Worcester Brush to permit the new tenant so that Worcester Brush is compliant with state laws and regulations?
It would be the former. As far as how the exemption works, Worcester Brush is the property owner. Worcester Brush is the only entity that can receive the exemption. However, in order to be able to utilize that exemption, it must be compliant with state law, and that means that employees who are in that facility, whether or not they are Worcester Brush's own, have to be a party to the agreement. So in short answer, yes, this is for Worcester Brush and only Worcester Brush.
Okay, so that really answers my second question, because again, part of the second question is, Welch is not receiving what I would say direct benefit from this, correct? The benefit is going to Worcester Brush still?
Correct. Welch would be a tenant of the facility, but Worcester Brush Company, as the owner of that property, is the one that is receiving that tax exemption.
Okay. In the write-up, you mentioned two grants, a payroll grant from the state that will be matched by the city, and a direct economic development grant. My question is procedural. Does council decide anything in regards to those grants? Are they baked into what we're going to be voting on, or is that going to be something that's separate?
Those are separate items that have already been taken care of. With regard to Jobs Ohio, typically their main form of assistance is a direct grant, which is referenced there. Then there's also a job creation tax credit. That is something that we do locally match. However, that requires, and it's predicated on receiving approval from the Ohio Tax Credit Authority. Completely separate program driven by the state of Ohio that is unrelated to the CRA.
Okay. And then, I'm new to council, obviously, third meeting. What kind of precedent do we have for making these types of amendments in the CRA activity?
So for our history, we have approximately 1 to 2 of these that come to us annually. We have another one coming from another firm here in the next couple of weeks. Our precedent has been to approve them so long as that tenant can be compliant with state law and that tenant agrees to be bound by the CRA laws and rules. We've always authorized that. We've not had an occasion to date where we've ever denied a request for a tenant.
Okay, so this is not uncommon, it's somewhat regular on an annual basis. And then the last one is a little bit more for kind of our seasoned council and administration. When I was reading it, I thought that's just peculiar, is in section 1 of the ordinance, and I believe it was on the second point, we'd be granting Mayor Reynolds authority to set terms in his discretion deems appropriate. And I'm just curious, is this normal operating procedure for this type of legislation or ordinance? Not that I think that Mr. Reynolds would be abusive to it. It just seemed like a very interesting language that was placed. So I would open that up to maybe any of my colleagues or to administration.
I can speak as the mayor at his third meeting. I can tell you that if there's a power grab underway, I'm unaware of it. That's Mr. Scudella to answer that question.
I believe that this has been the way that we've handled our CRA legislation. I do not think that it is there in any way to alter anything significant. The agreement is in place, and the agreement's going to judge most of how this works. However, it's if you do need to make some sort of small change, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but if you would need to make some small change, coming to council to do something that would be probably relatively insignificant, sometimes would be overly cumbersome, and so this would give us a little bit of leeway. But the agreement's the agreement, and that's what you voted on.
Okay.
So if I may offer just a quick example, as far as I understand, we've had that term in there since before we've had our CRA program in place. That would have been with our enterprise zone while it was the county's program. Most of the language that we have in our agreement, which was also included in the packet, originates from the state of Ohio. We keep all of that as we're required to, but we do have occasion to add in additional clarifying language. So for example, our city has a very specific code that says 1 year of exemption is offered for every 2 years of commitment. So you have you're going to create 10 jobs. here's a one-year abatement, you must keep those jobs in place for, or at least reasonably in place for a period of 2 years. So, to clarify in our agreement, we have one extra line where we tell, and just write it out black and white, that, like in this case, this agreement runs through 2034, so that it's clear, yes, the exemption's only 10 years, but it's a 20-year commitment. So that's how that has been historically used.
Okay, so I'll just, one last time I'll clarify, and then I'll step out of it and let other people jump in, is that this is not an abatement for Welch. This is existing CRA. It's helping Worcester Brush stay compliant by allowing them to have a new tenant and making sure that even though Welch may not get any of the benefit, still has to abide by the rules.
Correct, yeah, there's no provision as to how Welch, may or may not benefit. That's entirely Worcester Brush's prerogative, it is their incentive. But by signing this, Welch is going to make a commitment that they're going to have certain written policy on hand with non-discrimination. They're going to provide us information on payroll data, things that we need in order to be compliant with state laws. We have to share certain revenues as they come in.
So again, they're going to sign up for compliance and regulatory purposes, but they're not assured, and I'm not sure that there's any sort of an agreement in place, that they're going to get any benefit. So just to be sure, it's possible that this is almost a detriment to them rather than a benefit if they were not to see any benefit from the abatement.
That would be a fair statement. I'm not privy to what any lease terms.
Nor am I. I'm just putting the hypothetical out there, that way that there's no misunderstanding. That this is clearly just, hey, we're permitting Worcester Brush to have a tenant, but because they have a CRA, we have to go through this process, and there is nothing in this agreement that gives Welch any sort of benefit from this. The only thing they get is actually liability, where they are going to be regulated and have to go through compliance standards.
Correct, and if there were to be a breach, then that does go back on the Worcester Brush Company, and so there's a liability there. All that said, yes, when the government becomes involved, for lack of better words, in things like tax exemption, they do end up getting involved in some of the nitty-gritty work of authorizing permission for a tenant to enter one's private space.
Okay. That's all I have on my end. If anybody else wants to jump in?
I think that clarified it pretty well.
And obviously, we'll need to leave it on a first reading.
Yep. Any comments, Mr. Meyer? All right. Well, at this point, ordinance 2024-04 has had its first reading, and thanks for those that came and spoke about this. And Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read ordinance 2024-05.
Ordinance number 2024-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 162, Management Benefits of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio, and allowing for immediate enactment.
All right, thank you. Also want to note that Mr. Gaffey and Mr. Huzet have come back to their seats. And with that, Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. This will be left on first reading as we previously discussed, but this is, the city a long time ago authorized opening a position for part-time law director, part-time assistant law director. And that worked well for a while. Unfortunately, finding people to fill a part-time position is very tough. Those folks who have retired from the practice of law don't want to dabble in a part-time. And I was in a bar association meeting today, and we were lamenting how we couldn't find young attorneys, good attorneys to come and work. So it's a difficult position. At this point, I'm going to discuss this further with Mr. Scavelli. I've got some other questions here, but again, I'll leave it on third reading. Or first reading, I'm sorry. Whoops.
All right, well, thank you. Is there any questions from any other council members related to this? All right, well, we'll say it's had its first reading and move on to resolution 2024-16. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read that for us.
Resolution number 2024-16, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for furnishing bituminous material.
All right, thank you. And this will be introduced by Mr. Myers, and it is a budgeted item.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing this on behalf of Ms. Warden, who wasn't able to be here this evening. I did speak with Kurt Denning, our public properties manager, this morning. This is a fairly, as Mr. Welch was saying, this is kind of customary routine. We have to purchase the bituminous materials in order to do the street repairs that our public properties folks do every year. You might note that last year, the cost for about the same amount of material was $415,000 for 5,600 tons. We're going to get a little bit more. We've got a little more projects on our plate for this coming year. We'll be purchasing 6,500 tons. There's been some price increase as well as the increase in quantity. We anticipate spending $550,000 for it this year. Again, this is budgeted, so I will ask for, or I'll motion to approve this ordinance this evening.
All right, motion to adopt by Mr. Myers. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll call the vote to approve.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll go ahead and read Resolution 2024-17, please.
Resolution number 2024-17, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for mowing services for city-owned property.
All right, thank you. Yes, this is again another budgeted item, and Mr. Huzay, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just another customary / routine resolution for us today. Just authorizing the city to go out to bid for mowing public properties. You can see here we have public properties, parks, stormwater basins, highway right-of-ways, water utilities. Spoke with Mr. Denning earlier this morning as well. It's about 300 acres overall, and this is just something that the city would rather go out to bid and kind of free up our staff to do what they need to do. Unless there are any further questions.
Is there any questions by anyone in council? If not, Mr. Huzay, do you have a motion for us?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Is there a second? Second, Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, if you please call the vote to adopt.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Huzay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion is adopted. All right, Resolution 2024-18. This will also be by Mr. Huzay. It is also a budgeted item, but first, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll read it for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-18, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise according to law and enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder for landscaping and bed maintenance services for city-owned property.
Mr. Huzay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another customary routine resolution here, kind of going hand in hand with mowing our public properties. We also have a need and a desire to take care of them through weed control, mulching, pruning, that kind of stuff that everybody loves doing around their own personal gardens. We're doing it around City Hall, downtown parking lots, gateways, roundabouts coming up, and once again, it makes more sense for us to go out to bid instead of tying up our own staff with this. Pretty straightforward.
Very good. Do you have a motion for us?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Any questions from council? Ms.
I
Knappich?
do have a quick question. How many years have we been doing this?
I will say Mr. Denning did not advise me of that this morning.
We've been doing it as long as I've been on council. I mean, I've been doing this 12 years. As far as I know, we've been doing this for 12 years.
It's definitely been the past 6 years for sure, because I've done the legislation since I've been.
Well, I can verify 10. You got, we're bidding, the bidding is up as well.
I think that we're aware it's not.
Was there a particular number you were looking for?
25? No,
No.
I'm fine. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I think the only comment is that we do contract people to take care of those beautiful planters downtown, which is ironic that they drive around in a golf cart to water them, but we've outlawed golf carts.
Technically, they drive around in a side-by-side, which is different than a golf cart.
It's still under the same ordinance.
I mean, if we want to make golf carts street legal, I'll go ahead and have a
Would be.
conversation about that.
Depending on the size, it actually could fall into a different category. But in any event, yeah, don't need to digress. Please call the vote, motion to adopt, please.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Hussein.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right, motion is adopted for Resolution 2024-18. Last item is also a budgeted item. This will be introduced by Mr. Abernathy, and before he can do that, Ms. Hamilton, please read it for us.
Resolution number 2024-19, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract with Flowpoint Environmental Systems for professional services to replace the existing bulk water station and billing software.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, this is a budgeted item. I understand this is a complete overhaul. I think our existing vendor is maybe not doing so hot, and we're no longer receiving any sort of service from them. So this has already been brought up to council and put into the budget. So I would just say if there's anybody from the administration who wants to add anything to that, but I think it's pretty straightforward. We need to replace our current vendor and get moving with this one. Anybody want to add anything? Then I will motion to adopt.
All right, motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll call the vote for the motion to adopt, please.
Mr. Hussein.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey.
Yes.
Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we move into our miscellaneous portion, which at this point, we had no one signed up to speak at our miscellaneous portion. I believe the mayor has given us a pretty good indication of what is coming up here over the next few weeks. I would ask, before I turn this over to the rest of council to have any comments, I do want to make a, Ms. Hamilton will be sending out here over this next week, basically, not that we all probably can't figure out when we're supposed to be here, but in light of the fact that we've got a couple people missing this week, and we've had some, I guess, so realistically, I would just like to have an idea if everyone could go through their calendar, and if there's any dates that you're not going to be available, just let us know sooner versus later, just from the standpoint of, just in this particular case of what's going on this evening, where unfortunately, we've got a situation where we can't move this forward as quickly as I think we should be doing it, and so consequently, I just want to,
Yeah, that makes sense.
can't necessarily hedge it off, but at this
That
point,
makes sense.
if we know, maybe we can plan accordingly. So that's all I have to say about that. And Mr. Gaffey, any comments or thoughts this evening?
No. Everybody have a nice evening. Very good.
Mr. Myers?
Thank you. Just a couple things. I just want to thank John Hutchinson for coming to the meeting this evening. I had an opportunity, John is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club here in town. I had an opportunity to have breakfast with him this morning and hear about all the things that they're working on and for our kids in the schools. And it's, if you're not familiar with the organization and what they do for our community, I'd encourage you to reach out and learn more about it. It was fascinating, and thank you, John, for coming this evening and for sharing with me all the good things that you guys are doing through your organization. I did participate and go to the Worcester Community Hospital review with Bill Sharon. Bill and I's common goals, we both went to the same college, so he always has some insight, and we talk about that a little bit at the meeting. I will note that, I think this is right, you can correct me because you've been with me, we used to start that at 6:30, which made it even harder to get here by 7. Well, we didn't get here, well, let's just say we didn't get here by 7:30. And then for a while, we did 6 o'clock, and now we start at 5:30. and we just barely make it now. So I do want to say, yeah, it's always very good information. We have a wonderful hospital. I want to thank and point out, Mr. Sharon will be retiring after many years of serving our community. He'll be missed. His leadership has been really quite phenomenal for what he's been able to do with our hospital. And for our community members that may or may not know, because they didn't necessarily attend the dinner for the last 10 years as I have, I want to point out, our hospital has no debt. They actually have some savings and cash in the bank. They use that to do their buildings. They're starting another expansion of the hospital with money that they've saved up in order to do this. That's pretty uncommon in the medical community. So that's a well-managed institution to have no debt. And on top of that, those that may not know in our community and all of our citizens, they take no tax money here locally from our citizens. They are self-supporting. So it's not they are a public hospital, but they are not supported by your tax dollars. So that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Knappich.
Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Abernathy.
Nope, I'll just, the only thing I'll echo is congratulations, Mr. Sharon, on his retirement. I don't know that it is public knowledge who his successor will be, but I'll just say good luck to his successor upon public announcement. I don't want to be the one to get in trouble by saying it.
Mr. Jose.
I saw Mr. Malay actually left. I just wanted to congratulate him on the baptism of his child Sunday at St. Mary's. I'm forgetting the name of his new child, but actually Jonathan did as well, so it was,
I'd say he's a little nervous.
yeah, it was a little nervous, so.
He's had, doesn't he get the next one free? I mean, it's quite crazy.
You would think so.
Good cat.
Adam, yes.
So yeah, congratulations to Jonathan and Megan and his family. Thanks to Bill Sharon and the hospital staff and everything they did today for us and you know, keeping us up to date on what's going on at the hospital. And then lastly, just go Cavs, it's halftime, so let's get
Are they-
another victory.
Are they winning?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, good.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks all the council. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.